Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. The physical touch of a spiritual presence without being able to see or understand the entity causing it can be a totally unnerving experience, especially at night when you're trying to get to sleep. These chilling encounters were sent in by 3 Weird World viewers, with 2 seeking and finding clues. That's my stuff. Mark Bouncer and his wife Diane married in 1996, and he subsequently moved into her council house in Lower Farm, Bloxwich, in the West Midlands of England. He explains that Diane has been told that she attracts spirits with her bright life force, and that spirits want her help to pass over. However, she doesn't yet know how to do this, but is getting help from a close friend who can and does very frequently. In 2007, Mark and Diane lost their house to the bank and had to move into a block of flats where they lived for 7 years. They then found a council house perfect for themselves and Luke, their son. After moving in, Mark was putting things away in the attic when he noticed a large cardboard box way over in the corner and well away from the attic door. So he clambered with some difficulty over the joists and took it downstairs to show Diane. It was full of old gold-rimmed dessert bowls, glass ornaments, china cups and saucers, and World War II V-Day party photos that looked like they had never even been looked at. Diane was thrilled and wanted to put them on display, but they decided to first try to get the items back to the owners or family members. Mark tried asking the neighbours, but they said the man of the house had passed away and his wife was in a home now. No one knew where any relatives were, so they arranged the objects out on their display units. However, this was when things started to become very strange. Virtually every night, Mark could feel something walking around on top of the bed around his feet. It would take him hours to get to sleep, as he felt energised and as if he had already slept all night, even though he was tired when he went up to bed. Diane and himself don't sleep in the same bed, as she is very restless and constantly moving, so over time other sleeping arrangements had to be made. Mark didn't tell Diane about what was happening to him until she told Mark that she was being prodded by someone while she was trying to sleep. This had gone on every night for months. By this time, Mark decided to move his bed to the end of the bedroom next to a built-in wardrobe that stuck out from the corner. The bed just fitted in the gap that was left. A few weeks later, Diane decided to try and sleep in bed with Mark, who thought another night with hardly any sleep, so he went downstairs. As soon as he sat down there, he heard what he thought was Diane stamping her feet while running around the bedroom. He immediately thought it was because he had gone downstairs, but he was very wrong. Suddenly, Diane came flying down the stairs and said, "You can have that bedroom all to yourself, because I am not getting in that bed again." When Mark asked why, she said that after he had got out and gone downstairs, she had felt someone sit on the end of the bed, then slide in bed next to her. She had obviously thought it was Mark and turned over to face him, but there was no one there. She immediately declared, "Get out of my bedroom," and with that she could hear someone running around like they were angry at her, and that's what Mark had heard while downstairs. A week went by and Mark was in bed when he felt someone sit on the bottom edge of the bed. As it was a cold night, he had pulled the quilt tight between himself and the wall, so the quilt was raised up taut where Diane would sometimes be. Mark felt someone laid down on the bed next to him, pulling him with the quilt towards them, so he glanced over, expecting to see Diane, but as with her, he was alone. He didn't let it scare him and eventually dropped off to sleep. After these strange events, Diane contacted her friend, who said the presence was the owner of the items they had put on display, and suggested they try and find some family members. As it happened, the old World War II photographs were kept in small envelopes from the developers, where Mark found a surname. Mark took a few pictures of some of the photos with his mobile phone and put them with the name on the envelope on Facebook without his address, but to see if anything came of it. 3 days later, he had found family members who told him everything that had happened in his house and even described the interior of his living room, which has a ceiling with a raised line running down one side. He invited the relatives around to collect the family's items, which he had already boxed up in the hope of a response. 2 women arrived the next day and they had a long chat about the former man of the house. They said that about 20 years ago he had gone to bed and had died of a massive heart attack. When asked which bedroom that occurred in, he was told the one on the front with the built-in wardrobe and just enough room for a double bed next to it. Mark was shocked because all of the pieces of the events fitted together. From that day, he and Diane have had no bedtime visitors again or any other nighttime disturbances, but Diane has not slept in his bed ever since. Unseen force. Doug Ahart describes himself as mostly a skeptic and has always found ghost stories interesting, if a bit hard to swallow. He has never seen a ghost, but in his 70-plus years has trained horses for a few people who swear up and down to have had ghostly experiences. However, he does recall one very strange incident while he was interviewing for a horse training job when just out of college. Doug flew into New York City for an interview as a farm trainer in around 1974. He looked the place over, including the owner's animals, and was allowed to stay overnight in the farm cottage. This was where he would stay as an employee if he took the job. There was nothing unusual about the house, but in the middle of the night, he was suddenly awakened by a tremendous force pushing his entire body down into his mattress. Doug could literally not move for what seemed like long, long minutes. Finally, it seemed that the downward force subsided and he was able to reach up toward the bedside lamp and try to turn it on. With a pop, the light bulb immediately burned out with a flash. Now quite scared, Doug grabbed the covers and pulled them over his head, feeling like a little kid, and finally, bravely, went back to sleep. Years later, he happened to watch a supernatural documentary which mentioned that light bulbs often burn out around spirits. This jolted his long-ago memory about his experience in that New York farm cottage, and while he understands that there is such a thing as sleep paralysis, he feels his ghostly encounter was unique. He was not only paralysed that night, but was being forcefully pushed down into the mattress. Later in his career, Doug became a paraplegic and says he knows what paralysis feels like versus the sensation of being pushed down into a mattress, and says he has never experienced anything similar before or since that one scary lone night. Night messages. Robert was raised an atheist and never considered the paranormal existed. He has lived in 4 different cities and numerous accommodations with nothing happening, except for one place he stayed in 2006. Having moved in around May that year, one night he woke up lying across the bed and it felt like someone was holding him down. He struggled and fought back and asked it, whatever it was, to leave him alone. He felt it move off him and he got up, turned on the lights and saw that there was no one there. He dismissed the occurrence as sleep paralysis and ignored it. On another night, he received a text message from his sister's phone, which was a series of pixels. Eerily, they spelt out, "Guess who?" He received 3 of these messages, but his sister insists she never sent them. From then on, Robert would wake up on some nights and it would feel like someone was sitting on the end of his bed. He contacted a medium who, although not visiting his flat, told him 3 things about the presence haunting it. They said that she, the spirit, had stolen something from him. Robert had lost a watch. They also told him that she doesn't like white candles and so told him to stop burning them. He related that there were Gothic candle holders in the apartment and that he had been burning white candles in them. The medium also said that she, the spirit, wanted to tell Robert something. However, he never found out what this was, as he moved to a new job in London soon after this.